Are euphemistic orders that suddenly terminate government officials based on values and loyalty normal and good? Let's check the receipts. We know that Trump has issued a lot of wide-reaching executive orders this week and has taken other steps towards major budgetary and personnel shifts. The personnel policies were starting to sound familiar to me, and I'm reminded of the law for the restoration of the professional civil service, the first major legislation passed by the Nazi administration. In Germany, the Nazis had been elected as the majority party in the German parliament, or Reichstag, in 1932. And by 1933, Hitler and the German president negotiated that Hitler would become the chancellor, basically the prime minister of Germany. The first actual anti-Semitic and authoritarian legislation the Nazis passed was in April 1933 with the law for the restoration of the professional civil service. And many of these laws, just like a lot of these recent executive orders, have titles with euphemisms that make them sound very lofty and creative and restorative. The purpose of the law for the restoration of the professional civil service was to restore a national professional civil service and to simplify administration. Civil servants may be dismissed from office in accordance with the following regulations. In other words, restoring accountability to policy influencing positions within the government workforce. I'm not talking about this executive order in this video, but is this title really that far off from restoration of the professional civil service? Article 3 of this law was meant to remove or retire non-Aryans, meaning Jews, from government positions, or even remove, if they weren't paid employees, honorary titles that had been given by the government. Article 4 got rid of political opponents, especially those in the Communist Party. This removed political opponents from government positions regardless of race. The exact text is civil servants whose previous political activities afford no assurance that they will at all times give their fullest support to the national state can be dismissed from the service. And this is regardless of race. But the primary goal of this was to remove Jews. This Nazi law would lay the foundation for broader government control, since branches of the government would be staffed by approved ideologues. The next major legislation against Jews in Nazi Germany wasn't until 1935, but this was the inaugural law of what we think of when we think of the Nazi era. The executive orders made by Trump in these first several days of the second term also directly deal with purging existing career government officials who don't necessarily align with his ideology. One of the most sweeping executive orders that did this is ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferences. This orders to, quote, terminate to the maximum extent allowed by law all DEI, DEIA, and environmental justice offices and positions, and lists the different things that can encompass this. Forbes reported that government heads were instructed to notify employees that DEI offices are closing, that officials are placed on paid administrative leave effective immediately, and that their email addresses were suspended. They were also encouraged to ask employees to disclose anything they know about anyone making attempts or seeking to disguise DEI programs. The executive order Restoring America's Fighting Force ordered similar ideological streamlining. The Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall carefully review the leadership, curriculum, and instructors of the United States Service Academies and other defense academic institutions associated with their respective departments to ensure alignment with this order. Side note, the next line is just an absolutely incredible claim that these institutions shall be required to teach that America and its founding documents remain the most powerful force for good in human history. Other initial actions by the administration are achieving similar effects. Trump announced on Friday night, as one does for non-shady announcements, that 17 independent inspectors general were also fired. And on an even broader scope, this move to purge the government of career civil servants in order to replace them with politically aligned appointees is also seen as in what is called the fork of the road by the Office of Personnel Management, the OPM. And I thought that we were just colloquially referring to this as fork in the road emails, but this is officially called fork in the road. Employees are offered or bought out for full pay and benefits for the next 7 months in exchange for resigning. You can literally resign from your government job the way you try to unsubscribe from a text chain. Type the word resign in the subject line of the email. Look, I'm not saying that everything is going to end up the way a Nazi administration ended up, but I'm looking at these receipts, and I mean,